Hello, my name is Dr. Thad James Jr., and I'm the Vice President of Birmingham Theological Seminary. And I want to introduce you to three other of our professors that are in the biblical counseling discipline, and we'll be talking about two of the classes that we're going to offer this summer. We also have Mr. Brandon Robbins, we have Dr. Chesley Peed, Dr. Larry Dozier, and Dr. Howard Eyrich, who is the chair and the director of our biblical counseling program, and also the director of our Doctor of Ministry program. Dr. Eyrich will be teaching counseling theory this summer, and Dr. Peed and Dr. Dozier will be teaching crisis counseling. So, Dr. Eyrich, why don't you start us off and tell us a little bit about counseling theory and why?
Well, I think I'll start with why, because I have, from time to time, I will have students or prospective students ask me, why do we study theories of the secular world in a biblical counseling program? And I always respond to them and tell them, well, that's a very legitimate question. And it has at least three parts to the answer. The first part is that if you read the Bible, particularly Jesus and Paul, you find out that they demonstrate a very good grasp of the errors of their day, both in reference to spiritual issues and philosophical issues. They could address them well. Then secondly, when you graduate, the community into which you will go and function will be operating around these theories. And the professionals you have to interchange with will expect you to be able to speak their language, or at least understand what they're saying when they speak their language. And then thirdly, the study actually forces us to develop an even deeper understanding of what we believe and why we believe it. And it aids us in sharpening that broadening understanding of the manner in which we operate. Now, this course then will provide us an opportunity to explore biblical anthropology and come to understand that we as biblical counselors actually do have a theory. We don't call it that, but if the world looks at us and evaluates what we do, they're going to call it our theory. And I think it's helpful to really grasp that and understand that. So what does that really look like? Well, over the years, I've chosen to teach this class in the summertime. I've chosen to do that in the summertime for several reasons. It gives the student a flexible schedule, and it gives me a flexible schedule. And yet we can very easily accomplish the task. So I will begin teaching this, the first quasi-directed study seminar. I'll do that by walking everybody through and showing them what we do and why we do it and the way we do it, so that they'll be confident as they proceed through doing the work that's required for the class. And then I come the next time to the second seminar, and everybody will come with work done, having explored at least 4 major theories, and we'll be able to talk about those. And I will walk us through our biblical anthropology. You've had that in systematic theology, but I'll walk us through it, looking at it through the eyes of the biblical counselor in particular. And then at the end of the summer, we'll come back and we'll have another seminar. And during that seminar will be an opportunity for everybody to bring discussion to the table and interact around these discussions and pick each other's brain and encourage each other. And along the way, you'll have a book that I've put together. It's not out on the open market on purpose, but it is a book that I put together and self-published for the sake of this particular class. And I have several other professors in other institutions that also use this booklet, in which I go through and help you learn how to assess the presuppositions of these various secular programs, and thereby be able to compare and contrast them to your biblical frame of reference. So that's what this course will look like. We have a good time with it, have some fun with it, and you have a workbook that you'll work with that'll enable you to really process very well working at your own pace, and I thought to help you set a schedule for that pace so we stay together and get it done together. So thank you for the opportunity to come to you and so to speak, pitch you as sales, get involved, enjoy the class. I intend to enjoy it with you.
Well, very good. And so now, Dr. Dozier and Dr. Peed, we'll start off with Dr. Dozier. And this is a very timely and appropriate crisis counseling. We're in a crisis right now throughout the world, and people are just going crazy. So tell us a little bit about crisis counseling, and then you and Dr. Peed really can just kind of bounce things off of each other.
Well, good afternoon. It's an enjoyable opportunity to be here today. And crisis counseling, we're looking at the process that we go through when we go through crisis. As of now, we're going through a crisis. And there's one vital component that we have to remember, that God is still in control. And as we learn the different processes of dealing with different types of crisis, God still is in control. And we have to learn that and begin to paint a bigger picture that He is bigger than the problem. Sometimes it does not look that way, but at the end of the day, God is bigger than the problem. And our job is to learn how to access different crises from a biblical perspective to get God's result. Chesley, what do you think?
I think you're right. In the midst of it all, God is still sovereign, and helping people have the eyes to see that. And this course will hopefully provide a reminder of that. And like you said, a biblical model for entering into a crisis situation and dealing with that through the lens of Scripture, first and foremost. And to know that it's not if a crisis occurs in your counseling or as a counselor or pastor, but when a crisis occurs, that you will have the ability to work through it through a biblical framework.
Now, all three of you are actively involved in counseling every day. And so, Dr. Peed, as you counsel women and children at the Altadena House at Briarwood Presbyterian Church. So in your areas of counseling, I know personally that you're involved in crisis all the time. So give us a little bit of background to let people know just what kind of things are people going through right now and how this course can help them in that walk.
Well, dealing with women and children every day, one of the biggest issues they face, and I would say men as well, is anxiety and worry and fear. And during this crisis, the pandemic of the coronavirus, there's not a fake something out there going to attack them. There's a real something out there. And to be able to talk to them about very real concerns, and sometimes, things that aren't real necessarily are still very valid concerns. And so now working through this with a lot of people about economic anxieties,
right,
and just the very real human experiences of babies being born in hospital rooms with just the mother, and people dying alone, and having to walk through the horrific nature of those social realities in this crisis.
Okay.
That's what we're working through currently.
Very good. So Dr. Dozier, give us just a minute or so on your areas that you deal with on a daily basis as far as crisis is concerned. And again, also the focus. You kind of generally talked about it, but the areas that this course will be covering.
Okay. One of the areas that I like to spent a lot of time in is dealing with abandonment. If you notice, dealing with children today, especially in the church, we have kids coming there and very active, but at the same time, they're going home sleeping in cars and stuff. And at the same time, they're trying to keep up with their schoolwork and stuff and be part of the society. And we are learning that the trauma that kids go through is affecting them even after they have become adults. And so therefore, we have to go back and try to help get them to process the trauma that the childhood has affected them in today's society. And so that's one area. And then we deal a lot with single parenting. And we deal a lot with young men where the father's not in the home. And we do grief counseling. And we try to develop a program so that when the student leave BTS, they have in place a grief counseling program that they can go to their church and automatically establish a grief counseling program, and also help in the area of teen, because today's society, we have a lot of problems with the younger generation and dealing with where do they fit. And so therefore, we try to help the students become familiar with helping teenagers learning their role and the process of becoming more like Christ in their role.
Amen. So Dr. Eyrich, as one of the founding fathers of the biblical counseling discipline and programs, and the founder of ours here at BTS, and the professor of both of these fine doctors, why don't you tell us again how you bring, tell us about biblical counseling real quickly, but also you've taught both of these classes, you designed both of these classes. How do they work together in the overall picture of biblical counseling?
Well, it's interesting that what Larry just mentioned, he pinpointed several particular populations in which crises or crises are very common. Sometimes we think of the single parent, and that's a whole issue in itself, or we think of a child being abused, and that is a issue in itself. But in reality, those all start with a crisis. And how do you back up and reprocess some of that through your biblical grid, so you bring your thinking, your dwelling, as Paul talks about in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8, I think is where he says, dwell on these things rather, and there's an implied rather than these things.
Yes.
And that's part of what transpires as Dr. Dozier and Dr. Peed will work on those particular areas. That's part of what transpires. From my perspective, I'm in an interesting position at this point. I'm doing less counseling than I used to do, but I supervise somewhere between 20 and 28 cases a week because I have people working on their certification all over the country. And I do it by Zoom, and I do it by written reports and so forth. So I get to see regularly, literally, I have supervisees in California, I have them in Washington State, I have them in Midwest, I have them up in the East Coast. I see how the same problems keep manifesting themselves regardless of geography, regardless of economics, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity. The same problems keep raising their heads. So biblical counseling is so different than a lot of the secular ones we study in my class, because God created us. And because God created us, nobody knows us better than he does. So as we go to his word, we work from revelation as an analysis tool. We work from revelation as a prescriptive tool. And we work from revelation as an encouraging tool in the midst of crisis. To become alongside somebody, as it were, give them a hug, give them a smile, give them a word of encouragement, give them something to read that drives them deeper into the word. So it is an ongoing process that we come out of this context of biblical theology. We come out of the context of the character of God. We come out of the context of the creative work of God, and we come out of the context of the sanctifying work of God, where he uses these difficulties in our lives, as we're taught numerous places in the Bible, to polish us and refine us, or to use a theological term, to sanctify us.
So thank all three of you very, very much for your time. For those of you who will be watching this video, go to bts.education. The schedule and the registration forms are posted there. Please click on Start Your Journey to fill out the information there, and we will get back in touch with you. So Mr. Robbins, will you close us out, please?
Yeah, well, thank you for watching this. Just want to encourage you that BTS has got your back. Thad and myself are there to provide any kind of support you need, whether it's helping with the content of the course or delivering that content, or the technological difficulties that you are maybe afraid of this summer. Don't worry. You can reach out to either one of us, and we will help equip you so that you can have an opportunity this summer to continue your education, so that you can continue to move towards your degree and really begin to implement, especially in this course, really implement these counseling opportunities to really build up the kingdom. So we thank you for watching, and look forward to seeing you guys in class this summer. Thank you.